When I hit 59, I was hit of the side of my head with a brick with perimenopause. I was like, what the heck is happening with me? And I literally woke up one day and I'm like, who are you and what have you done with Sophie? Everything that I was known for, all my grit, my smarts, my ability to, I would just stare at the screen and go, okay, well, there goes another day. Gone, 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 gone.
Welcome. Welcome to The Global Crowd, the podcast where friends from the globalization, localization, and international business world share their stories, their insights, and what makes them tick, while I pretend to be a real podcaster. I'm Jose Palomares, and I've been in this space for more than 25 years. In that time, I've been really lucky to meet some truly remarkable people, and this podcast is my way of celebrating them, their talent, their ingenuity, and above all, their quality as human beings. What can you expect? Honest conversations, a few oddball questions, and maybe a spark of inspiration. No sales pitch, no sponsors, no hidden agenda. We record this in one take, and the guests don't know what I will be asking them. We hope you have as much fun listening as we have recording it. Let's get into it. So today, it is my great honor to introduce my wonderful friend, Sophie Solomon. Welcome to the Global Crowd, Sophie.
Hi.
That's it?
That's it. No. How are you, Jose? Thank you so much
You're
for.
supposed to be a pro at this.
No.
You're the one who does it all the time.
My agent just keeps me booked like nonstop, but I just made sure I carved a little time for you.
Oh, yeah, it's my privilege. Actually, it's been like pretty hard to get some time on your busy agenda, so I really appreciate that. I hope this is worth your while.
It is. It is. And so before you get into it, I want to thank you for starting this initiative. I was trying to describe to my son who's visiting. He arrived last night and he said, what are you doing tomorrow? And I said, well, I'm going to hang out with my cousin from another mother. As you know, we're cousins from another mother. And I said, he has this podcast. He says, what is this podcast about? And I said, well, in a nutshell, what he does is he celebrates the people he admires and the people he cares for. And I don't know a lot of people that take the time to do that. So I just wanted to thank you for that because that's very special. Yeah.
Thank you. That's so sweet. And wow, thank you.
That speaks of your heart. No, nothing like that to get you off track, right?
No, nothing. No, I love it. And say hi to your son. I was lucky enough to meet him, and I'm sorry for what it's about to happen in this episode. So I apologize in advance to your son and the rest of your family. But again, thank you for being here, and thank you for agreeing to not charge me hourly for this thing.
Okay, well, you don't know. You haven't seen the bill yet, but I'll.
But you agreed to that, right? Otherwise, I need to stop this thing right now.
I did agree to it. I did.
All right. Okay. So, Sophie, tell us, who are you and how did you get here?
Whoa. So who am I? So I'm a little bit of an odd bird. So we'll just get all this stuff out of the way first. I was born in France from French parents. I grew up in Barcelona.
Yay!
Like you. Under Franco so that was very interesting. I lived there for 10 years, moved to Portugal when I was close to 11 years old. I lived in Portugal for another 10 years, went to middle school, went to high school, went to college in France. And when I was 20 years old, I decided that I needed to learn English. Didn't want to learn British. I wanted to learn English and moved to California to learn English.
So many people are just so pissed right now that you said English is one thing and the other one is British. So I'm loving this. You're really vibing right with this.
I know, and I'm going to get a lot of what for that, but that's okay.
Fair disclosure to anyone listening. You're going to hear a few opinions that are not necessarily always super popular, and this is why exactly I wanted to have so badly Sophie here.
Yeah, well, this is like I was never born. Well, again, I was never born to win the popularity contest. That has never been my thing. But so that's me. as a person. And then I made my life in the US. Unknown to me, I never thought I was going to spend 40 here, which I have. I have 4 kids. I've had, God, not a linear career. I started my professional life in tech with Autodesk, did very well, and then decided that I needed to choose between being a mother or being a professional. I didn't have the tools nor the support to do both. So I took 10 years off my professional career and stay home. I didn't stay idle. I started a food bank. I started a swim team. I was on the board of 10 organizations. I started my own company in electronic medical records. So motherhood was not a hobby, but it was technically my full-time job. And then I did all those things on the side. And then I picked up what you would say, my traditional professional journey after a little bit over 10 years, 4 kids later. And then, so for the last, I want to say 14, 15 years, I've been flirting with different companies, Autodesk, Microsoft, Google, Uber, Amazon. And my last stop was with Accenture. And so that's kind of who I am as a professional, if you want. And then on the side, I have a thriving community of amazing humans in my life, the family I chose, you included. And so I entertain a lot. I travel a lot. I do a lot of sports. I discovered that I was an athlete when I was 22 years old when I moved to the US, because before that, I was too busy hanging out on cafes and smoking cigarettes like every decent European woman does. So I do triathlons, I run, I bike, I paddleboard, I do all kinds of other things. And I think that's more to keep me mentally sane than anything else, because when you raise 4 kids for 10 years, you need to find something to keep you center. And so that's kind of who I am. I live in Seattle, Washington. It's not at the end of the world, but you can see it from there. And I travel a lot. I happen to have a partner that is very mobile, to say the least. And sometimes I'm able to tag along, sometimes I'm not. But if there's an interesting destination, I kind of take it. I bring my laptop with me. I just like this digital nomad. I try to get out of the way, have a lot of fun and meet a lot of great people. But yeah, that's me.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you mentioned you moved and you grew up and studied across 4 different places, pretty much. What drove that? Why so much movement?
Well, initially, I mean, when I was a little girl, growing up, I didn't have much of a choice. My dad was a French engineer who was actually born in Barcelona. His father was an expat. And during the Civil War, La Guerra Civil, they had to leave Spain and they took a boat from Barcelona to Marseille, where he's from. But he was always bilingual. His family was bilingual. And so they were looking, Raman Haas, an American company, was looking for a bilingual engineer to establish their presence in the Iberic Peninsula. And as you know, at the time, there was Franco and Salazar. They started in Spain. And then after the revolution in Portugal, they asked him to take over all the Iberic Peninsula. So then we moved to Portugal. So I didn't have much of a choice. So I always, although I'm French, always grew up in a different country. And I think that, living in Europe, mobility is a lot easier. You have access to a lot more. You're exposed to a lot more languages, cultures, although you have Spain, Portugal, France, everything, some people think it's the same, and we know it's not. If you take Spain, north of Spain versus the south of Spain, you just get a taste for diversity. I think people are just not like you. They just eat differently, or they look different, or, they have a different accent. And by the time I was 11, I was trilingual. I spoke Portuguese, Spanish, and French, but I always felt like I needed to learn English. And my parents had this brilliant idea every summer to send me to England. Where are the British people in the summer in Portugal? And who goes to Britain? The Italians, everybody from the South, because they want to learn English. So I learned Italian in Britain, and I was like, come on, right? So England did not do it for me. And the Jello salads, no, not really. We are in my family, my mother owned restaurants. We are foodies. As you know, I am a foodie. I cook a lot. That's my love language. And like Britain was just not my thing. So I graduated from high school at 16. I was done with college at 19. And I'm like, I'm learning English, but I'm English. I'm not doing British. And so my best friend's sister was finishing a master's of architecture at University of California, Cal, at Berkeley. And I called her up and I say, Anna, do you have a spare bedroom or a couch? And she said, yes. I was like, can I come? I want to learn English. And she's like, okay, come over and we'll figure it out. So I moved to California. I lived with a family. I was their nanny or their au pair, whatever you call it, for over a year. Loved them. Very hoity-toity family up in Pacific Heights in San Francisco. They introduced me to Danielle Steele, if you know the writer or whatever. A bunch of people. It was Feinstein was part of our network. Anyway, I just met fascinating people. I'm like, I don't think I want to leave. I don't want to come back. I applied to Cal with the encouragement of the family that I was with and got in, ended up doing finished. I got a master's at Berkeley, and then stumbled into Autodesk. Literally, they hired me because I was fluent in 4 languages.
Which is why you're also in the global crowd.
Yes, I know. And it was amazing because I have a master's in art history. I worked for the De Young Museum in San Francisco. I wanted to be a docent. I mean, that's my background is art history. Tell me what I'm doing in business. And it's like, I studied, well, this is really funny, humanities. I didn't know how to say humanities. And for years, I would tell people I studied humanities and they will look at me and says, is that a new degree? And I'm like, no, it's
No,
been around forever. And it's like,
a disease. It's when you
anyway.
I suffer it. I am humanitizing right now. Like
Yeah.
getting I'm totally inflamed.
So I studied humanities, but that was kind of like the opportunity that came with the languages was extraordinary. I went to pick up a girlfriend that worked at Autodesk. Her boss was with her. She went back inside to get her keys, and he's like, "You have an accent." And I'm like, "Thanks for noticing." I said, "Yeah, I'm French." It's like, "Are you French?" And it's like, "Well, your English is pretty good." I'm like, "Well, thank you. I came here to learn English." And oh, so where in France are you from? I said, "Well, I grew up in Spain and Portugal." And he stopped me on my tracks and he said, do you speak Spanish? I said, yeah, pretty well. Yeah, that's kind of my mother tongue. And then he's like, do you speak Portuguese? I'm like, yep. And French, yeah, obviously. Yeah. And then he's like, well, English. And then he's like, do you want a job? Just like that. I came back the next day, the day after I got an offer and I said, we're looking for people that this is how I got my green card as well, because they couldn't find, how they have to find an American person they could not find an American person that spoke 4 languages fluently. And that was it. That's how I started.
Okay. Let me stop you there a
Yes.
little bit and because you assume that we know, but we don't. So
No.
what do you do for a living?
What do I do for a living? I make friends. So, no, it's not a joke. If you look at my resume or anything that speaks of my digital business card, I always encourage people to say, what is your superpower? Now it's becoming kind of a cliche, but 10 years ago when I started talking about it, it was not. So my superpower is a people connector. When I meet people, I love people. Some people get depleted by human interactions, get energized. I love people. I listen, I hear, I connect. Just like it fuels me in a visceral kind of way. It's kind of how I recharge my batteries. So once I realized that was something that I was good at, especially when you do business in Latin countries. So think Spain, Portugal, Europe, South America. I build relationships. People talk to me. I know things about people that I don't tell other people because one, I never share. You and I never had this conversation. That's kind of like, or if people ask me, do you know? I said, I don't know, and you don't care. And so I think there's something comforting about that. And I don't know where I learned it because my mother was the biggest gossiper in the world. But when I built those relationships and people end up trusting me, and I remember having conversation with, as you know, I met Vicente Fox, I met Lula, I met Hugo Chavez. I would have those conversations with them where they would ask me for something. And I said, no, we don't do that. But I'll find somebody that does. And so when I started developing my own, I think it's, I hate the word authentic because it's just like it's been overused, but there's this very candid and matter of fact quality about the interactions that I have with people. If I don't like somebody or if I'm not happy with it, I just walk away. I don't speak evil. I've learned later on in life that that quality of authenticity, for lack of a better word, is comforting. Just it gives me when I meet people that are like that, it's a relief. It's like you can be yourself. You're not going to be judged. You're not going to be taken advantage of. You're not going and I have learned throughout, and I have not answered your question yet. This is way to get it. Just so you see the kind of person I am. But anyway,
This
that
is why I say that I edit this thing out. So don't worry.
okay. So what do I do? So what I have done through my, all the different things that I've done although I don't consider me a salesperson, I've always been in business development, sales, and marketing. So for Autodesk, I opened a network that over 180 distributors throughout Latin America with distributors. It was at the time where we had to ship the product. So with that, I developed a whole marketing initiative, a whole sales initiative, developed relationships, started to ideate in terms of, how do you position the product? So top down, bottom up strategies, identifying key, which we would call today, what is your buyer persona? How do you target your buyer persona? So I was doing sales and marketing instinctively, not necessarily by training. As you know, I have a master's in art history. So my career has always been in uh, developing sales strategies, growth strategies, I would say, for enterprise size company, because it's been Autodesk, it was Microsoft. I launched Bang in Latin America. I've done a lot of work with Google. I went into consulting at the latter part of my professional journey, especially with Accenture. And it's always been about finding different opportunities to innovate, to grow, um,
Can you
to rethink. Yes.
can you explain what is Accenture?
Accenture
Surprise, huh? You think that everybody knows? No, they don't.
is one of the largest consulting firms in the world. We employ close to 800,000 uh, people. We're known for being in just any vertical that you can possibly imagine, and known for up to last week, I think, innovation art. Anyway, so I didn't join Accenture because I wanted to. It's because the company that I was working for was acquired by Accenture. So I went into management consulting through Accenture. So basically, what we do is that we work primarily with $1 billion worth of revenue in very large.
It's really big. It's a really big business, and then it sounds
Yeah.
like you got really well positioned within that. But also that there is a transition, right? So you were doing, and I try not to dwell too much into work, but it's interesting here because I think that it's inspiring in a way that you joined a company because you had like language skills,
Yes.
and then you use your ability to create relationships to kind of support sales, if I understand it correctly. And then through that, you actually were able to, at a time where not everything was templated and decided on how you do sales and how you do strategy and how do you do growth, you figured out how a few of the mechanisms that perhaps now are like very well known, but that at the time you had to had, and there was like no global information and there was like no global training, and there was a lot more like putting the skills. And then you managed to like switch from that to management consulting, which is I think it's a fantastic transition and also like a very inspiring move, because you really started, as you said, with a degree that wasn't on any of
Right.
the work that you were going to do. You had humanities, so a very inflated human in you, and then you still managed to do a lot of other things. I think that that's still today a very very relevant story. And I think that's, at a time where like many people in our spaces reconsidering what they want to do in life, it is a very inspiring one. Just want to like make a point here that Sophie, for anyone listening, Sophie is actually really dangerous. She will steal your friends. So that has happened all the time. You will introduce her to someone And when you come back in 10 minutes, she would be friends with those people and they would no longer be your friends. So if you're like me, who I like my friends very exclusive and I want to feel special about it, just don't introduce people to Sophie. The danger is real. So your job.
Okay.
It is
All
true.
right.
It is true. It is true. It's factual. You can ask people around. So your
Yeah.
job, I have two questions for you about it and what you do. First of all, it's like, how would you explain it to the 5-year-old?
How do we explain to a 5-year-old?
Mhm.
I help businesses sell more candy.
What are businesses?
Any kind of business.
What is a business?
A
I only have
business.
5 years.
Okay, so when you go to 7-Eleven and you want a root beer float, that's a business. They give you root beer float,
Mhm.
right? Or if you go to a store to buy a little device, beep, 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 that's a business. It's a place
I'm not.
where you,
I'm not sure. I have you for a really good mom, but we're giving like root beer and video games to a 5-year-old. We're gonna have to rethink this episode.
yeah, well, the irony, I am such a hypocrite. My kids, oh, it is like it's terrible. I'm a real hypocrite. My kids did not have pop until they were 10 years old. That was the rule in our house. They didn't have pop or gum until they were 10 years old. And they did not watch television until they were 6. Well, I'll tell you a funny story about this. One of my daughters, because I wanted my kids to speak French, so I had a VCR and they could watch some Disney movies. I just picked and chose. It was PBS, Teletubbies, or, the Zaboomafoo. And one day, one of my daughters comes back from a play date, sits with the sisters, and she goes, "Do you know that Cinderella speaks English?" And my sisters are like, "No, she doesn't. She speaks," and they're singing all the little songs that Cinderella speaks. No, no, no. She speaks English, and Snow White speaks English too. Can you believe it? And then they kind of looked at me and I was like, "Oh, really?" And they're like, "Mommy, did you know that?" I was like, "Oh, I don't know." So that's just to give you an idea that I'm total hypocrite because now I'm talking about root beer floats and I'm talking about video games. And I just didn't know what that exists.
All right. So the other question I have for you about your job is you had it pretty good at your last job, but then you decided that you wanted to stop doing that. Why?
Well, it's very simple. When it's not so simple. Uh, so I've done a lot of bold things in my life looking back. I have to say it was not always a linear road, but I did it. Quit your job when you are being groomed to be part of the leadership of Autodesk at 34. I'm like, "No, I'm quitting." And my boss could not believe it. He's like, Do you understand what you're doing?" And I'm like, "Yep, I totally do." Took 10 years off and started a company with the father of my kids, electronic medical records, when it was not a cool thing. And I was pregnant with my 4th child. And so I don't know if it's the fire in me or I just do stuff like that. And I gonna be, as you know, my birthday's coming up. I'm gonna be 62 years old, and I want to only do things that matter.
I think it's so just this is my and people can get upset about me commenting on this, but it's like it is so unfair how healthy and how great you look for 62. I just I
Thank you
just want
very much.
I just want to I'm falling apart, I'm decaying and I'm not there yet. So just want to say very unfair. If you guys are not watching on video, just turn it on right now. It's
Thank you.
pretty surprising.
Well, just like I have every intention to be around for another 20 years. I mean, but what I mean being around, being active, moving, building, as you know, I'm doing all kinds of other things. I just want to do things that have purpose and matter. I want to be surrounded by people that I love and I admire. And I'm not saying that not everybody's worth loving and admire, but not for me. And I just walk away. I don't criticize. I don't judge. I don't, I'm not that person. I just,
But you do get polarized. You do get sometimes I've seen you. So let's see if you admit to this. So when
yeah.
someone really pisses you off, you will get mad about them. You just don't tend to retaliate and you take a deep breath and then don't bite back. But boy, there are people who can like piss you off.
Yes. And there's certain things that trigger me, and it's lies.
Mhm.
It's dishonesty is when people are being taken advantage of, like children or old people, and I see something unfair. Jesus, I don't know. I should say Moses because I'm Jewish, but just something ignites in me, and I become like this. This is not going to happen on my watch. It's not even righteousness. It's just it's wrong. Otherwise, if it's not worth it, but I understand the consequences of speaking up sometimes, and I just look at it and I'm like, this is why I meditate a lot every day. I just walk away and I'm like, they're not worth it. My time and energy. It's going to give me high blood pressure. It's going to get me in jail. No, not doing that. Not going there. Not going to give them that time of day. But
But
boy,
don't we have fun bitching about someone though?
yes. And you know what? That's an interesting concept. I've learned, and I'm cautious, is like sometimes you need those venting sessions. You need to vent, or if you feel sorry for yourself, you need a pity party, but then you got to move on to action. And so when I vent, and it happens occasionally, I'm mindful of what it is that I'm saying. Would I be able to tell it to the person? And most of the time I would. It's just one of those things. I don't speak evil of others behind their back.
Yep.
If I process something, it's to get me to a place where I'm going to be able to articulate what it is that I'm feeling and thinking to that person. Because I think it's very important. This way it's clean.
It's also a practical approach. So for different reasons, I've taken that approach myself where I just, if I say something about someone, it's because I don't mind telling them. I might not do it because I don't want the extra harm of you needing to know my opinion, but I am ready for someone to record a conversation without me knowing. I am ready for someone sharing a private text that I sent someone. So that I stand by the things that I say and I don't say them unless. So I think that you and I, we are on that
Mhm.
same page. That's why like venting feels so good because it's honest and it's objective for the most part. Or we're just talking about like how upset we are about someone's behavior and how
Process.
outrageous it is and how we're going to destroy you when we see you.
But it helps process. It really absolutely is like in which ways are we going to destroy you? But then
We
but
don't. We really don't.
no,
We talk
we
about
don't.
like how karma should be stomping on you really hard, and but then we leave it to karma.
So, you know what? It's interesting because I think like we're coming full circle from what we started in terms of having the thing about relationships and how you build relationships. This speaks of the quality of the relationships that we have. So, I don't know how we got here, but it's interesting now that you were talking about it.
I
It
think it
was
was me interrupting. It's every time that I interrupt you,
That's good. I like
I throw
that.
you off track. This is something that is like great because I am trying very actively, and I want everybody to know when you listen to this. It's like Sophie can be like extremely laser focused when she's talking about things like work or talking about a topic. She has like this annoying habit of when I'm telling her about something that I'm dealing with at work or something like that, she will start like ask me questions as if she was like immediately like my coach and I was like paying her a salary, and she starts to like ask me, it's like explain that to me. So why are you doing that? How are you doing that? And then she gets really laser focused. But then when we're like off work conversations, she just has so much to share that we go on a million tangents. So I deal with it. We're here in a comfortable environment. So it's
Okay.
we're enjoying ourselves.
I can be laser focused, but it's true. You know what you just said about this? That's something that I have cultivated. I didn't have the best model at home growing up, and I became very mindful of the experience that I was given and aware of the experience that I was giving others. And, when you talk to people or when you're with the kids, they kind of taught me a lot of that, where you go, uh-huh, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, you're not there. And the concept of being present and the concept of being intentional and being mindful of the experience that you give others is now part of, this is who I am. And so when you talk about being laser focused, if you're going to tell me a story and I get the fact that it's important to you, I'm going to drill down until you tell me to stop because I care.
I recognize it, and then I switch into like, okay, well, I'm being coached for free right now by a friend, so I'm gonna let her, even though she didn't ask for permission. I understand that that is a part of like our contract as friends, right? But I wonder if anyone ever gets PC at you doing that. You're starting to try to help them without them asking for help. Do you see that
Well,
adverse reaction from someone, or do you just like churn them out of it?
no, it's usually I think that yeah, I have never find myself in a position where people were upset or uh I usually would ask, I said, do you mind talking about this? Or is that something you wanna explore
Uh-huh.
further? If they say, no, you just wanted to, it's okay, then you need to get the cues. But it's interesting you say that because usually people disclose some pieces of information for a reason. Maybe they want to talk about it and they don't necessarily know how to approach it. And so I think that the best way to handle that is to ask directly. Are you just telling me this because you just need to vent or do you want to solve it?
I see your point. I think that it's a little bit tricky for people who might not be in the right mind state.
Mhm, mhm.
But definitely it is the easy way. Just say what you need and or what you feel that you need, or say, I don't know what I need. But I'm glad to have someone that will pick up on the passion about what I'm talking about and just say, okay, well, let me ask you a few more questions to see if
Or why, I usually say, do you mind if we
yeah, you
can
done
ask?
with me. You don't ask me for permission. So I'm
Tell
trying
me.
I'm trying to take that as a good thing. But I'm going over my head is like, nope, she never does. She never asked me. You have never asked me for permission before like
No,
coaching me on the spot, which I take it as flattery. I
that
choose
is
to
so
I
true.
choose to take it that way. So do you remember when I think that we started to become friends? We haven't known each other for that long. It's just been very intense. I think it was Southampton, the most attractive of all places on earth, and we were
Mhm,
at the rooftop, and we were just talking. And at one point, I think that I was going through a bad moment with family and family mental health.
mhm,
And I just remember that all of a sudden you were that person that I didn't know well at all, but you started to tell me about your own experiences and people in your life and offering me advice and asking the right questions and offering help. And I think that that is how it all started because even
mm,
even from that first interaction, you wanted to help and you did. And I think that that is why, it doesn't happen often. I go to a lot of events and the conversations that you have with people are not necessarily that deep and
mhm,
people don't create a space or a safer space. That's why this came to mind is how did I get, I'm like super protective of my personal life. I try to open about like mental health, my own, but not necessarily my family, for instance.
mhm.
Right. And, but there was a safe space where I was comfortable telling an almost a stranger about that. And then you reciprocated by just telling me about your own experience. I just think that that was beautiful. It came to mind as
Thank you.
our origin story. So I wanted to share that.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And that's very, very sweet feedback. And as you know, it was not planned. It was that's who I am. I think the the thing that is interesting is that and I think that that's what you're touching on, when individuals disclose something personal, that shows an element of a willingness to be vulnerable. And you only do this, and I think it's instinctively when you feel that you can. Otherwise, sometimes you make mistakes, judgment calls that are not necessarily the best, and you can get burned or hurt or whatever. But when somebody demonstrates the willingness or the need to be vulnerable and you're able to reciprocate with the same, and I think that that's what you're talking about, just like this willingness to, or the courage to be a little bit vulnerable is a gift. If somebody hands you a gift, reciprocate with a gift that is equally meaningful. And I think I take that very seriously.
And and I think that it's a skill as well. So sometimes people think that this is something that just happens because you're authentic and you're like that, but it's not. It's like on both ends, opening up and being vulnerable creates honest interactions and it creates that safe space. And then picking up on vulnerability and getting on the same level, and that creates immediate trust, which is, I think, one of the ways that you steal everybody's friends as you get introduced, because you're always like willing to do that exercise, which might come naturally to you, but it
Mhm.
is a learned skill. And I think that is also like part of who you are as a business person. The fact that it shows up in different degrees of intensity or at different interactions.
That's a good way to put it. Thank you for, like holding a mirror. I appreciate that. I really appreciate. No, I appreciate that. Yeah.
So
Tell me.
I'm gonna go thematic because we're gonna be recording here for 4 hours, or we'll have to write a book. I want to pick on one of the causes that you want to make a difference for. That is one about menopause. I think it's a known thing that you are in our globalization space, in our community, and beyond. You are the recognized authority on championing and educating about menopause. And I
Mhm,
know that that's a personal thing that you care about, but you have also like turned it into something that you do at the workplace. And that is where I think that it crosses a boundary that makes it super interesting for me. The fact that thanks to you, I learned all the things that people are struggling with.
mhm.
And it prompted me to learn more because, menopause is present in my life
Yeah, yeah.
and people around me. And I became really interested about it. But workplace as well. It's something
Mhm.
that you've done. So how did that become part of your story? How did you get to become that champion around menopause education?
Well, just to put it in a nutshell, and I'll tell you, I'll start with the end and then I'll move backwards. Somebody asked me um, in May, why do you want to be the face of menopause in a company of 800,000 people? And my answer was because somebody has to. And this is a topic that is dear to my heart because it impacted me. When I hit 59, I was hit of the side of my head with a brick with perimenopause. I'm technically a statistic because most women go through perimenopause and menopause in their 40s. And when they hit 51, 53, that's when menopause hits. And what's menopause is when a woman has not had her period for 12 consecutive months. So menopause happens on that day, and then you become post-menopausal. Before that, there's a whole period called perimenopause that does horrible things to a woman and to her ecosystem. And this is where it's absolutely fundamental and necessary that the people that support that individual or so allies, the men, the other women be part of that conversation because a woman experiences the symptoms, the ecosystem suffers. And that's where education, as you said, it's so important. So what happened to me is that I was hit with debilitating brain fog. I had no idea what brain fog was. And since I was sleep deprived with my last child because I was up all night, feeding them or whatever. And I was like, what the heck is happening with me? And I literally woke up one day and I'm like, who are you? And what have you done with Sophie? Everything that I was known for, all my grit, my smarts, my ability to, I would just stare at the screen and go, okay, well, there goes another day. Gone, 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 gone. And I swear that I was 1 second away from quitting and said, that's it. I'm done. I'm going to be 60. It's time for me to retire. And I was like, no, this is, and then I'm like, what is going on with me? You go see the doctor, and the doctor's like, well, you must be perimenopausal, menopausal. I'm like, what the heck is that? And I'm 59 years old. Okay. So think about this, 59 years old. I have done a few things in my life. I'm educated. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm just learning about technology. I'm doing all this stuff. Crickets. When it comes to my health, nothing, nothing, nothing. And then I'm like, shame on you, Sophie. How come you don't know? So I asked my OBGYN who's supposed to look at, and she's like, now all HRT. I'm like, what the heck is that? Where's the pamphlet? Where's the book? Where's the nothing, nothing, nothing. You go see your general practitioner. Oh, you have heart palpitations. Oh, go see the cardiologist. Oh, your skin is dry. Go see the dermatologist. Your joint hurt. Go. And I was like, it was so freaking fragmented. And I was going from doctor to doctor. In the meantime, I was unable to do anything at work. And then I'm like, what happened to everything that I've done? Gone. It was like, and I was like, okay, how many women are in the world? And then I start asking my girlfriends, do you think perimenopause and hot flash and whatever, hot flash is nothing compared to everything else? And then and they're like, oh yeah, a little bit. And I'm like, do you want to talk about it? And they're like, well, yeah, it's kind of inconvenient. And I was like, I was horrified. I was absolutely horrified. First, because no information was available. Two, because women are ashamed of what's happening to them. There is a huge issue with ageism, right? And then not only there's ageism, because usually, you want to hire a 62-year-old that is menopausal. Hell no. You want a 34-year-old that is vibrant and full of energy and blah, blah, blah. Well, what you get with a 62-year-old, if she takes care of herself, you get wisdom, you get experience, you get perspective. My nickname is GSDS, get the shit done, Sophie. You want to throw all this stuff away because you're having symptoms with perimenopause and menopause? And I was like, this is criminal. This is absolutely criminal. So what did I do? Start talking about it at work. And people are like, I went to the employee resource groups at Accenture that has women. It's over in the United States alone, 50,000 women that are part of the, I think it's 50, close to it. And I'm like, can we talk about menopause? And they're like, about what? Well, we talk about breast health for breast cancer. And they're like, well, actually, there are two women in the UK that has started this little group called the Men of Warriors. And I'm like, oh, we're doing this here. Took me 2 years to launch it at Accenture in the US. And basically what I did, I started bringing in specialists. I started talking to people. I started activating my network. And I'll give you the final resort. I created a group, Men of Warriors US, and then I'll tell you what I'm doing now that I've left Accenture. But the mission of our group is to create a safe space where women and men that are curious about the symptoms of perimenopause, that want to be better managers, that want to be better colleagues, that want to be able to promote the women, that if they have that authority, to be able to promote the women in their organization and not judge them on the symptoms that they have, because that happens because ageism is real. So create an environment where all these people, the people impacted, the women that are experiencing and the individuals that work with them, to be able to come and talk about it and then provide the resources to do something about it. There are tons of organizations out there that provide women-centric menopausal and perimenopause symptom care. They're very hard to find because, again, everything is very fragmented. And in the United States, we have the added complexity of having a healthcare system that is completely warped, and women's health is not at the core of it. And if it's not mainstream, then you don't have access to that. So I created this environment where we can talk about it, where we can educate ourselves. So I have an extensive library of resources, podcasts, books, webinars, organizations that provide that intelligence, and then having the vocabulary to talk about it, to say, this is what I am experiencing. For that, you need the courage, first to recognize the symptoms that you have, and then having the courage to talk about it in a non-confrontational way. Do not, when you bring the allies and the men in your life, do not decapitate them because they don't go through menopause. Give them the opportunity to learn, like you. And once you understand, then they're able to develop the empathy and create the space for us to be able to get to a place where we can be rational enough not to want to kill you, but to really get the support that we need from you. So with that, yes, go ahead.
No. I just wanted to say it's it really resonates with me. It's so there's a few things I want to call out, but I'm gonna start with the immediate one, which is, I try to be an ally to
You are.
more than one cause. And with menopause, I tried, and I found that women will actually try and shut me up and give me well, you're a man, you should not be talking about that. That's not something you understand. And I got into, with different degrees of success, get to explain to people that I can be very knowledgeable. I can be very close to it, the same way that your doctor is trying to help you without necessarily going through menopause. But I see that women are very reactive to actually the talk. So with that, you doing this at work,
yes,
it creates a lot of volatility. So is two questions for you. Does it get volatile as I can imagine it? And is this something that every organization of every size should try to even address? Because the programs that you're describing, the activities, I see that being a costly resource, right? You need to invest money to make it happen.
Well, I'll tell you what, $0. I had no money. It was all on my time. So I was never paid for it. That's what you call a +1, or basically a corporate citizenship initiative, something I was passionate about. I put it together. I had an editorial calendar. Every month we met on the first Tuesday to vent and the last Thursday to educate. And that was, so
Uh,
we talk about weight gain, we talk about nutrition, we talk about mental health, we talk about through their eyes, the eyes of men, the eyes of Asian women, the African American women, just to make sure that the LGBTQ community, do you imagine being in a house of two women going through menopause together, and then they have a teenage daughter that's going through adolescence? There's blood everywhere. I mean, it's like, you're just like,
I don't want to imagine someone who is transgender
oh, well, I know, and that there's.
struggling with identity crisis. That's one of those that I.
So we had a whole in June, which is Pride Month. We had a whole initiative that focused exclusively on how do we support our trans colleagues and friends to go through this period, and how do we educate ourselves to be able to show up in that way. So it didn't cost me anything. $0. All you need is the playbook that I've put together and an editorial calendar. You volunteers, basically it's a win-win. You create the community and you invite people that eventually can monetize their appearance. They come for free to talk about what are the things that they can do for the communities. When it comes to deploying the program, it's like you become that connective tissue between the community that needs it, the resources that exist, and you create this environment where things can be talked about and solved for. Right? Now, when it comes to men who are not, first of all, I think that us women need to make a big effort into getting rid of the shame that comes and the taboo that is associated with perimenopause and menopause. Perimenopause and menopause is the most natural thing that can happen to anybody that has ovaries. And I don't care if they identify as a man or as a woman, you have ovaries, this is going to happen to you. So once you understand the biology, don't be mad at those that don't have ovaries. That's the number one. When a man comes to you and say, I understand that there's this thing called perimenopause and menopause, and I want to learn because I want to be a better partner. I want to be a better father. I want to be to my daughters when they grow up. I want to be a better son to my mother because she may be going through it. I want to be a better colleague. Don't shut them off. Don't shut them down. I mean, that's a disservice because then it becomes, oh, we are special. And then why antagonize those that want to help? I don't understand it. And I think it's wrong because I have seen it at work. And all the men, I tell you, I partner with the men's ERG at Accenture. When we had our calls and we had our meetings, 50%, sometimes 70% of the people that participated in the Men Warriors meetings were men. All the men were on camera. And they would always say, at the end, you see the comments, what book can I read? And it's all the intention was to learn. And so it's very difficult. Like a lot of men feel like they have to walk on eggshells around women that experience it. But think about the intention. This is what at the core, if a man comes to you and say, there she is with a hot flash, then you decapitate them and I'll be happy to hold them. If a man comes to you and say, I see that you're struggling, is there anything I can do to help? That's beautiful. And then you say, you know what? I'm having a freaking hot flash. Hasn't happened to me. But I have brain fog, which is worse. I have a freaking hot flash and I cannot keep my composure. And I said, well, I'll hold the meeting for you. Just take your time. When you're ready, let me know So I think there's an opportunity there. And I mean, I don't want to judge or criticize or tell that all the women that just push you out or just are wrong. What I'm offering is like, think about the intention. When somebody comes to you and asks you for information or is really inquisitive, and you know it, you feel it, why close that door? That's my question to those that do not invite that collaboration. And I did a whole session every year through their eyes, and I called men, oh, pause. And it's amazing. It's just amazing. The majority of the men that attended were from Latino and African American origin. And I asked them point blank, I'm like, you're here? You're beautiful. Thank you. I so appreciate it. But it's like, what is the main reason you're here? Many of them said, I want to be a better son to my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And that it brings tears to my eyes, which I think it's just like, it's gorgeous. I'm like, you mother, you well.
So you've touched on this, but this is a statistic that I want to share because you have said it, and I just want to repeat it out loud. Every woman will go through it. You know,
Yeah.
any cisgender woman will go through it, right? But every man has a mother,
Yeah.
so everybody will go through it one way or
Yeah.
another. It is just like one big episode of it. So how deep our experiences are, it will vary, right? How much your mom, like you said, tells you and gives you a chance to be a better son, a better daughter, whatever. But we, like all women will go through it, and we all have a mother.
Another.
So I wish that that more of us, we actually normalize our super common that we need to know more about, because otherwise it's so confusing. It is.
Yeah.
It's so confusing. I see women being like very confused about their own body, and it's really weird to have to like support them when you are like not having the same symptoms. But hey, we can. And I want to like be funny about this, but you said, well, you know, I had brain fog that is worse than hot flashes. How do you know if you haven't had hot flashes?
Because you're right. I have not experienced the hot flashes. I see the the so hot flashes are visible. Brain fog is like mental health. It's invisible. And then it's just like basically somebody turns the light off in your brain and you can't think. And people look at you like you're stupid. And all they see, it's an old woman that cannot hold her thoughts together. When you have a hot flash, you physically, so you know what? I'm saying it's worse. I don't,
I know, but
when you have, you know what, usually what I do, when people that have attention deficit disorder and they get distracted, they go squirrel, that means something. So they got distracted. For brain fog, what I do, I just say, I'm like, okay, there comes the fog. And so now I laugh about it because it's like, it's not even remembering. It's not being able to think. But anyways, that's, I can go on and on about it. I mean, in the end, the message is like, let's see if we can do something. I mean, if I can help in any way, anybody that's listening to this about how to make it happen, I think it's very important because listen, women are living longer and longer.
Mhm.
I'm 62 and I'm not ready to throw in the towel. And the fact that I was crazy enough or bold enough to take this on and to really want to make a difference for something. I'm not angry. I'm not upset. What I'm angry and upset about is that I had to do it alone, but I'm not militant about it. I want to make sure that I provide for even if I impact one woman, to give her the courage, the voice, the education, the vocabulary, the knowledge or the environment where she can feel beautiful, she can feel accomplished, she can feel like she's the most amazing badass at 61, 62, 54 or whatever, and she can continue to be her amazing self even if her ovaries called it quits.
Mhm.
That's the intention. That's what I want to do. So this is, I was talking about what am I doing now? I want to do things that matter. And this really matters to me.
All right. It's you have like answered so many of the questions. So the structure that I have for this is all over the place by now, but it's absolutely gorgeous. I want to add one more thing that happened to me around menopause, which is like I said, we all have a mom, and my mom is turning 80 this year, and I found myself actually having the conversation about like menopause with her like 30 years after she went through it.
Do it.
And
Amazing.
even that had an impact. Even that was a beautiful conversation to have and say, tell me how you lived that. And she told me a lot of things about like things that maybe in some cases I noticed back in the day that there was something strange about her, or maybe she was not feeling well, or maybe she had like, I couldn't pick them up at the time. I was too young. I didn't know anything. She would not share. But even now, having the conversation, I think it has done her a lot of good. So even if you have already gone through it, talking about it, going over and sharing how it felt for you will do some good. And also, it will prompt her to, in any conversation she continues to have with any women, like hopefully also women in my life. So what I'm trying to say, never too late to even have the conversation, even after menopause. If we missed it, if we didn't talk about it at the time, well, let's do it now. It's never too late.
Yeah. Oh, well, you know what? Kudos to you for doing that. because it's, as we said earlier, it's like it's a touchy subject because you don't want to offend. And yet for women, even later in their lives, to see that you care, that they don't feel broken or less than because they are no longer ovulating. I mean, that's really what it is. They're stopping producing estrogen, and it doesn't have to be the end. It's just a phase in our lives, and to be seen and heard for who we are as a human, rather than our ability to reproduce, which is really primal, but it's true, is amazing. And it's like this. She's lucky. She raised you well.
No, I think.
She's lucky. She's lucky to have a son like you. That's all I can say.
Thank you. My mom went through depression for it, so I know.
Most women do actually. I mean, depression, mental health is a huge, huge. I mean, think about this. You're getting older. You're like, hormones are all over the place. You have hot flashes, or you cannot go up the stairs because your hips hurt. And when you get to the top of the stairs, you don't even remember why you got to the top of the stairs. You have most likely, and I hate to stereotype, but a lot of women go through imposter syndrome. Listen, it's imposter syndromes on steroids. So women are just like, God, forget it. And then you go, okay, so if you've had a family, my kids are out of the house, or if you're an aunt, your nephews and nieces are not around anymore, and then you feel like your career, it's at the end. It's like, how do you find yourself again? And so the mental health and depression is real. And a lot of women struggle through it, do not recognize, or don't have the tools to be able to fight it. Their doctors are, worthless. Because just listen to this. A general practitioner gets 2 hours of training on menopause. And if you're lucky, your OBGYN may get 1 week of training on perimenopause and menopause. That is criminal. So we have to empower ourselves, and we have to educate ourselves. It's not their fault, right? But once you know those numbers, then you're like, okay, let me learn about it. What can I do? You got to be in the driver's seat. You got to be the CEO of your own perimenopause and menopause journey. You have to be that. And then you go and every time I go see my OBGYN, she goes, what you got, Sophie? And I'm like, okay, I have a list of podcasts I have. And she gives it to people. Anyways.
And that's why it brings it back to like why there is an opportunity to actually talk about these things at work. It's because outside of work it doesn't necessarily happen, and at work at least there is the opportunity of there is a productivity loss. It is a business problem. It is a retention problem. It is factual. It is pragmatic. You need to support women so that they are performing better. So that means, like everything in business, right? It gives you a business reason to also do it. So if it's
Did you read my article?
I read everything you write. That's how I have anecdotes and have so many questions, right? But yeah, exactly that. It's
It's a business, and no, it
a
costs
business
the
paper.
United States billions of dollars every year in this alone in lost productivity for symptoms that have not been identified and treated, or women that quit. So I think the article that I was referring to is called Menopause is Not the Problem, Silence Is. And it's like again, I want to caveat all of this with, I don't want to be militant, and I don't think militancy is effective. I want to be, or at least try to be, a problem solver. I identified an issue. This is kind of how I do my business. You develop a problem statement, you develop a hypothesis, you validate your hypotheses, and then you deploy it. And this is exactly what I did with this issue. I identified a problem, was the problem statement, loss in productivity, depression, women that heart problems. Anyway, just go on and on. The hypothesis is, if you create this environment to educate, to empower, to solve for, to collaborate, then you're going to get happier individuals. And you know what? My hypothesis was right. And I'm so happy to see it stick everywhere I go. There's more and more conversations about perimenopause and menopause. And we don't have to be angry about it, because if we solve for it, then we're better off for it.
And I think that this is an opportunity to encourage everyone in every company to try and look into creating such an initiative in any scale that you can. If it can be like the one talk, do the one talk. If you can create a whole program around it, do that. If you need to connect and bother Sophie about it, I'm pretty sure that she will respond positively and help you out with the resources. But in every household and in every company, there is an opportunity to support women for, for selfish reasons. At home, boy, it definitely makes sense to support your women when they're going through it. And at work, oh yeah, big time.
Yeah. And so, you know what, they're very simple. If you want to start small, there's 2 events a year that are a great opportunity for it. There's International Menopause Day in mid-October, and then there's International Women's Day in March. So those are unique opportunities to be able to bring women's issue in a safe and kind of like agreed upon environments, and there are amazing conversations to be had. And it's so anyway, so that's and if you want to go big,
But never,
like I did, I never go small.
I would say in my experience, never tell your company it's going to be like the one day thing. Just say we're launching this on that day, because otherwise,
Well, that's what I did. It's like September. That was, you know how I did it? I call the person that could create the employee resource group for me. In July, and his name is James. I said, James, I'm going to be 60 years old. That's when I started it. September 5th. I want you to give me the best birthday gift ever. And he's like, what is it? I want an employee resource group called the Meno Warriors, where we talk about menopause. And he said, you want what? And then I said, can you do that for me? And he's like, okay, I see that means a lot to you. So he called me mid-August and he said, September 1st, you'll have it. And I did. But that's kind of like, this is what, an ally. And then and then I said, you want to join the group? And he's like, menopause? I said, yeah. And so he became one of my biggest allies. But anyway, it was a cute little story. That was my birthday gift.
okay, well, this is so enlightening. I usually structure the episode in a way where, we keep the wisdom towards the end, but you've been giving me plenty. So I think it's time to give you a little bit of a break. Actually, I have one last question for you that I might not remember to ask you later. If you were not doing any of this, if you were not helping leaders and advocating for women in the workplace and outside of the workplace, if you were not fully devoted to be a family woman, what would you be doing instead?
Well, I would probably be in Gaza. Oh, I would be in Ukraine.
All right.
Because I think that is, it's devastating. And it's like it is truly something that gets me in the gut. I have a friend who is Médecins Sans Frontières, and she's here now. She's taking a break from,
Doctors Without Borders, for those of us
yes,
who don't speak French.
sorry. Yeah. Uh, and she's here for 3 weeks, and then she's going back to Gaza. And I've known that, I mean, since the beginning. And the way she would, and I've known her since I've moved to the States, so it's been almost 30 years. She doesn't lie, and she says that what she's seen and what she's lost half of her colleagues and friends to war. Famine is not a made up story. And there's just something about human nature that for some reason, and I don't know what it is, we did this during the Crusades, we did this during the Holocaust, we've done it in Rwanda, we're doing it in Sudan. How can a human being or any sort of human ecosystem is capable of creating what is happening? And so, I don't mean to be too intense, but yes, this is what I would do. I will pack up a little backpack with, pair of socks, underwear, toothbrush, and maybe a t-shirt, and head over. Yes, there's a whole risk of not coming back, and it's real, but at least you're tried. So that's what I would do.
Nothing to add. I wish
Yeah.
that by the time that we publish this, things were different, but something tells me that we need a lot more to change and happen. I wish.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, let's go
Sorry.
into something a lot lighter than that. Let's do some rapid fire. All right. So the goal is that I'm going to ask you questions and you try to answer them as briefly and quickly as you can. So
Okay.
try your best, but then it goes the way it goes. Let's start. You say a lot, I love being old. What's the best thing about being over 60 that nobody tells you?
You don't give a shit about what anybody thinks.
How do you stay looking so young? Like seriously, what's the secret?
I eat very well. I sleep well. I exercise, and I drink 5 liters of water a day. Yeah, at least.
Wow. My God. I don't want.
I'm always close to a bathroom.
Do you need to
I
go? Should I hit pause and so that you can
No, I said, well, I only had 1 glass of water, but yeah, I drink a lot of water.
I have a friend that makes a lot of fun every time that I show my bottle on camera for a call, but you might need one of those.
Yeah. Oh, I have many. I have one in every room in the house. So no, I drink a lot of water. I exercise a lot. Yeah. Well, thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that.
No, it's factual. It's not a compliment. It is reality. So your kids have moved out, but you say that they're like closely tethered to you. How important is family in your life?
Oh, that's it. I mean, that's purpose. It's interesting. My kids are gone. I feel like I've taught them everything that I need to teach them. I don't ask them to call them. I don't ask them to come. I don't ask them. I only if they choose to or if they want to. I am a very hands-off mother. If you did it right, congratulations. And if it doesn't turn out all right, I made you do it. It's just like I'm kind of like the silence force behind their lives. I hope that they experience it that way. But they're everything. I'm marveled at what they're becoming, and they are what they were always meant to be. And it's amazing. I have a musician, I have a tattoo artist, I have a social media influencer, and I have soon an attorney.
Yeah. You're also making sure that they go have fun and good careers.
Oh God, yes. They say, the best compliment I've gotten is my oldest daughter said, "Oh, you think I have fun? You should see my mother and her girlfriends." And I'm like,
All right. You foster dogs. Tell me about that. How many are we talking about?
my gosh, I love puppies. It's just like they love you unconditionally. They sleep in my pillow. My partner doesn't like that, but I don't care. My friends, I had a dog for 18 years, Cashew. She was a little poodle that looked like Bob Marley because I didn't shave her head. And then I had 2 little cats that were raised by Cashew, and all of them are gone. And I was so devastated by their leaving. I said, I'll never have a pet again, but I'll borrow pets. So when my friends are out of town, it's Sophie puppy daycare, and it's incredible. I feed them well. We go on walks. It's just unconditional love. I mean, they look at what we said, don't look at me with those puppy eyes, because they look at you and you are like the most beautiful, wonderful thing in the world. And I just adore them. I don't know. I'm a cat and a dog person. I've become that old woman.
Okay. You care for basically everyone around you. I've seen that. When do you think that started?
I think it started young. As I said, my mother, I didn't have a very good example growing up. And I was loved and cared for by the help that lived in our house. I got so, I left home. I left home when I was 16. I mean, it's just to go to college and stuff like that. And I think it happened like 5 or 10 years into my stay in the United States, where you start realizing that when you give unconditionally, you get back 10, 15 folds, and you don't give to get, but the collateral damage, if you want, of giving is getting so much more. And it's just a natural thing for me. It's just like it flows out of me. I mean, I don't strategize. I don't plan it. It's like, I'll give you an example. I boarded a plane a couple of months ago, or a month ago, and there was this gentleman with 2 little girls, 2 years old. And one was crying. And I just like, I don't, it's so spent. I went up to him and I said, "Can I hold her?" And he just like, that little girl opened up her arms. I held her, got her in the plane, got her situated, got, everything. And when they were fine, I showed their dad where I was sitting and said, "If you need, come and get me." It's not programmed. It's just something that, and so there's just like, I think it's Pavlovian. That's what it is. It's like when you realize that when you press on the thing and the cookie comes. And so when you realize that when you give, you get back, is like the adrenaline, the endorphins, or whatever just kick in. And it's just like, I just see it and I do it.
All right. Just mind the rapid fire. You've been to over 70 countries.
Yes.
What keeps driving that curiosity?
People, food, experiences, getting out of your comfort zone. It's it's a feast of getting your senses, your juices flowing. I think it's just like curiosity more than
But you
anything.
studied art history. So
Yeah.
how does that shape now the way that you look at the world?
Oh, it's fundamental. That's the foundation of it all. Don't take me to the Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City because I could be there. I could sleep there. I'll bring my sleeping bag. And so that's the thing, is that you start connecting the dots and understanding. It's just like I have a saying that when life gets complicated, open an art history book. You'll get the answer there. And so that is just like being part of this continuum is phenomenal. And so when you understand, you're in Colombia, you're in Azerbaijan, you are in South Africa, it doesn't matter where you are, you start understanding what is your place on earth.
So what's a place that you've been that has completely changed how you see the world?
Colombia.
How so?
Colombia is an interesting country. You look at South America, it's got the Pacific, it's got the Atlantic, it's got the Andes, it's got the Amazon, and it's like a confluence of cultures that it's incredibly rich. So it's known for, drug cartels and all that stuff. But when you start diving deep into it, the resiliency and the beauty of Colombia is mind blowing. Tiny little country, and yet it's just like that. So that has always been my place. Plus, they speak the perfect Spanish.
Perfect Spanish?
That's what I
How
hear.
dare you?
That's what I hear. Anyway.
What's your signature dish? Something that brings you pure joy to make.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. The one that I make tigine, which is loaves, and I'm known for that. I can make 30 different tigines.
Okay, I've been missing out.
Yeah.
What would drive me absolutely mad about living with you?
I'm fiercely independent. And so it makes sometimes people ask me, and it's like, can you need me a little bit? And I'm not that person. I just do everything myself. I'm a delegator. Don't get me wrong, but I just it's like chaka chaka nabu chaka. I just get shit done all the time in my head, and that makes people mad. I never need help. I can do it. I do it. Not only I can do it, but I do it. And then it's like, stop being efficient. It's not efficiency. This is the way that I work, but it's like that fierce independence make people upset.
Okay. So France, Spain, Portugal, the US, a few other places that you visit often. What is the best place to live?
It depends on how you define best. I love living here because I have a community that is exceptional. It's like I pick up the phone, my friend Hélène, I said, where are you? She comes, and then she pulls out a bottle of wine from her beautiful purse. I mean, it's like, or my friend Peo that comes back and drop off his dog, and just like having that community is phenomenal. I want to live in a place that, not that I'm thinking about, what's next or the rest of my life. I want it to be in a place that's warmer. I want sun. I want the beach. I want good food, and I want a community. And so I don't know. It's like, it's where I am and where I create. There's no, I'm thinking, as maybe moving to Portugal. I think that would be a really good deal. Rio de Janeiro is not bad either. Been there many times and really love it. But again, I think it's where my heart is more than anything.
Why do you always order white wine or champagne?
Because I can't drink red wine. If I drink red wine, I get horrible migraines.
Okay.
This is what I stopped drinking alcohol totally for like almost over 10 years. And then little by little, the champagne and then white wine has creeped up into my life. And now not only I tolerate it, I really enjoy it. So that's, so no red wine. Otherwise I get massive headaches.
I'm glad to hear. I thought that it was because you thought that you were better than us, red drinkers. So do you have any tattoos?
No, I do not. I do not, and I will never have
How
a
much
tattoo.
does your daughter hate you for that?
She does every day. I said, if I get tattoos, I would get 3 little bubbles 4 little bubbles at the bottom of my foot for my 4 kids. That's kind of the things. I will not get a butterfly in my tuchus. That's not happening. And no, it's really funny. When my girls were young, they would come and talk to me and say, Mom, I need to talk to you. I was like, are you pregnant? Did you get a tattoo? And one of them became, as you know, Kamini became a tattoo artist, very famous tattoo artist. And she's covered in tattoos. And every time I see her, I want to wash them off and they don't come off. It's no tattoos, no tattoos. But she's amazing. She's just like, I'm so proud of her. I think she's fantastic.
She's really good. So what we'll do is we'll actually, when we publish this, for those looking at the video, we'll have a link here to her Instagram profile so that you can enjoy it. She's really good. So swimming pool, ocean, or lake? What is your favorite?
Lake.
Okay. Is it true that you swam across Lake Tahoe
It is true.
on purpose?
Oh, because I do stuff. Remember, I was on the swim team. That's a whole other story at Berkeley, and there was a bunch of dudes that said, "Hey, you're on swim team." Yeah, it said, "You want to swim across Lake Tahoe this weekend?" I'm like, "Sure, sign me up." I've never been to Lake Tahoe. When you know that the water is 56 degrees and you have to swim for 14 miles, it's a relay of 14 miles. I thought I was going to die.
I'm glad you didn't.
But I did not.
So Barcelona or Madrid?
Hombre, Barcelona.
All right. I just needed that both. Art museum or history museum? They're not the same. You have to pick one.
Why did you ask me that question? I was just in Washington, D.C., and what I learned in the Museum of American History was phenomenal. And the Museum of African American History was maybe I would do history because you can always bring art. Yes.
They're like closely linked. What's your guilty pleasure TV show?
Dancing with the Stars.
All right. Still hoping to be part of it?
Oh my gosh, no, I hope they don't invite me because that would be, I'll be eliminated on the first round of Dancing
But you
with
will
the
look
Stars.
fabulous.
Well, thank you. With the little sequence outfit.
There you
Oh
go.
my God.
There you go.
Twirling around.
Morning person or night owl?
Night owl.
Mm,
All the way.
I like it.
Except that, I'm up at 6 because most of the people I work with are in Europe. No, night owl. Absolutely. I do my best work after 4 p.m. Ask my clients. 4 p.m. Oh my God, she's coming up with more ideas. Yes.
Do you always tell the truth, even when it hurts?
Yes.
Okay. Best beach in the world versus worst beach you have ever been to?
Best beach in the world. So there's a beautiful little beach in Turks and Caicos called Coral Beach, and it is everything like little semicircle Coral Beach in Turks and Caicos. That's the best. The worst beach, gosh, I don't know. I don't think there's such thing as a bad beach.
Okay.
Maybe there is. I don't know. I like the beach. Make it.
What's the most expensive thing you have ever bought that is not a house or a car or a company?
The most expensive thing? I don't know. I'm not a spender. That is a good question. Is it a watch, maybe? I like beautiful things. I have very few beautiful things. So I don't spend a lot of money on clothes, but I have very nice belts, very nice watches. I have very few pieces of jewelry. Maybe a ring, maybe.
Okay.
I don't
Good. You did this before. You stole my thunder with this one. But if you had to pick one superpower, what would it be?
superpower. I told you I'm a people connector. So, and I think that's a superpower. Well, we didn't talk about any of this stuff, but you know what? Self-awareness and emotional intelligence, I think, are critical. And a lot of people lack self-awareness. And when you have self-awareness, you become a much better human because when you understand how you impact others or yourself and you do it with intention, then you have the opportunity of becoming a better human.
Well, I'll say I'm glad that you didn't pick laser eyes. So, what language do you dream in?
No, you kidding me? That is like that question I get all the time. What you dreaming? And depending on what I'm dreaming about, if I'm in Rio, I'll dream in Brazil. If I'm in Portugal, it's going to be Portuguese, but it's going to be a different, or France or whatever. Or sometimes it's a smoothie of languages. Yeah, it's this big drawer with languages, with words, and you just pick whatever fits. Yeah, no idea.
Mm-hmm. Coffee or tea?
Coffee. Oh,
On a special day just for you, what would you love to eat? On your
Something
special day,
different.
you get to pick anything.
I don't know. You know what I love is a really good tomato salad with the best tomatoes. You know, the ones that you slice and the entire room smells like tomatoes. Pan con tomate and jamón serrano. Oh my gosh, that is just the little garlic on the bread
Why
with
did
the
you do
olive
that to
oil,
me?
salt, and
Okay. What brings you greater pleasure, reading or writing?
writing.
What's something you're secretly proud of, but you never brag about?
Something is secretly.
You brag about things all the time, so that's going to be a tricky one. What it is that you don't?
What is it that I brag about? I don't know. Do I brag about? Do I brag?
No, you're just like very unapologetic
Matter of fact.
about the good things about yourself. So that comes off, I'm sure, to some people as like bragging.
I don't care. I mean, it's like if you're factual, you're not bragging. But anyway, what are the things that I brag about? You know what? I know a lot about technology, but I don't look like it.
Okay, that's a perfect answer. What food did your kids hate that you insisted on feeding them?
Initially, it was ratatouille, and now they love it.
Okay, so if you haven't like watched the movie, it explains. Not all ratatouille is like that, but you can actually make
Mhm.
it. What's your biggest pet peeve about people?
The lack of self-awareness.
Bothered you?
Yes, annoys me. I just sit there and I go, really, dude? Like, it just like that. And so I observe and I walk away. I don't comment. I don't even bother because it's just like nobody's home. Or, you're in a meeting and some man that's happened to me can't start of mansplaining. I think the last time I've experienced that all my life. And I turned around and I couldn't stand anymore. And I'm like, Kevin, if I need a megaphone, I'll ask next time. And he was so unaware. He asked me afterward, what did I do wrong? And I'm like, okay, do you really want to know? But so, yeah, the lack of self-awareness.
If I sneak into your phone, what would be the last thing you Googled?
The laundry detergent that I love. It's a French laundry detergent that smells so heavenly. And it's kind of so I went on Amazon and I just looked for my laundry detergent.
Do you ever delete your search history?
Not really. You can see, like, I'm an open book. You can see all the crazy stuff that I look up. Yeah, no.
What's the non-religious book you have read the most times?
The Shadow of the Wind by
Wow.
Zafron.
Wow.
It's extraordinary. And it reminds me of my childhood in Barcelona.
It is really well written.
It's extraordinary. It's the best book.
and
Best book I've ever read.
it's actually, I've heard that from a significant number of people telling me that is their favorite book. And it's been around for a while, but I think that is still very relevant. And it also speaks about Barcelona. Why would I be biased about that? So if you ended up in jail, what would your partner think you've done? And what kind of bail money should we get ready for that?
I probably punched somebody in the face for being unkind, which kind of happened to me. I was standing in line at Starbucks. There was a woman from Latin America that was trying to order coffee, and this woman behind me was getting impatient and went over and she goes, for God's sake, learn to speak English. And I turned around and I destroyed that woman. That's when, flipped I destroyed her. And she's like, well, I wasn't talking to you. And I'm like, oh, yes, you were. You were talking to everybody in this room. I was so mad. This is probably what basically I saw somebody, I've done things that I don't recommend doing, like total crazy. Yeah, I would just when I see somebody being treated poorly, I would just come and just beat the crap out of whoever is being the offender. And then I would have blood in my hands and I would go to jail. And then I said, well, it felt like a good idea at the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
I can see how someone might decide to keep you there for a couple of days until you cool down. Mm-hmm. So I have two very serious questions, but remember, this is rapid fire. What has been the most tragic event of your life?
When my sister died in my arms.
I'm sorry about that. And now the really important one. Would you rather fight one micromanaging VP or 10 incompetent directors?
I'll go for quantity.
10 incompetent directors?
Yeah. And then, you have one conversation with all of them, set them straight, or else.
But they're incompetent.
Yeah. What?
They're incompetent. They're not going to know what to do with it.
Oh, don't worry. I'll remind them. Yeah.
All righty. Well, you've made it through rapid fire and an insane amount of questions. So thank you.
No more?
No more rapid fire. I still have a couple of serious ones under the frame wisdom segment.
Tell me.
a long time ago, you told me that you had been a child actor and you did not necessarily love it. So is that something that you want to talk about?
Sure. So, but
And let me,
so
I need to give some context for this, just for reference, so that we know what we're talking about. Do you recognize that?
yes, señorita babies.
Okay. So tell us, what is that?
Okay, so my mom had this brilliant idea. We lived in Spain. She had 5 kids. I was the middle child. Uh, we were all very blonde. Actually, I do not color my hair. This is my natural hair color. Um, uh, and somebody approached her once and said, "Do you want your children to do, pictures, modeling, and stuff like that?" And my mom thought it was a great idea. So for 10 years, I was a child model until I stopped the whole thing. So there was a little doll called La Señorita Pepis, and La Señorita Pepis was a nurse. She was a flight attendant. She was a mother. She was a cook. She was all the things that little girls.
She was a cleaner. She was a sewer. She was
Yeah,
all the things that we stereotype women with.
that women do. And they picked me as La Señorita Pepis. Just think of the Barbie of Spain. So everybody you meet, they said, "Oh, you grew up in Spain?" Yes. And they said, "Oh, yeah." And I remember telling Jose, "Oh, I was La Señorita Pepis." And he looked at me, he's like, "Shut up. No." And I'm like, "Yeah." And so this is proof of that. And it was a horrible childhood. I mean, I was in school 3 days a week because the rest of the time I was either doing some sort of movie. I was on the Boys from Brazil. I was on the catwalk, whatever. And it was really, really bad. And this is where I learned about women objectification. I was 14. I was on a casting, 17 girls walking around in a bathing suit and a bunch of dudes that picking us up. And they picked 3 of us and they looked at me and they said, "And you by next week, you need to lose 2 kilos." And I looked at them and I said, "F you," and walked away. And that was the end of my modeling career. So fast forward 20 years later, 30 years later, one of my daughters came to me. She has good looks and was asked to be a model. And I looked at her and I said, "I'm going to tell you this once and I'm never going to tell you this again. When you pay your bills and you're done with high school and college, you can do the heck you want. But as long as you're on my payroll, that's never going to happen." And that's exactly what happened. She graduated from a prestigious university in Canada, then got a really great job. And when she was 23, became a social media influencer. She's doing quite well, but she's not on my payroll. And it was a horrible, horrible thing to do to a little girl. You are just a piece of meat. And you have to look a certain way, behave a certain way. And for somebody that's fairly independent and has an opinion about absolutely everything, they would ask me to do stuff. And I'm like, no, we're doing this. You having that next cookie. And my mother would be so mad and I would get spanked and, whatever that is. But yes, I was that child model. And then I became that teenage model. And for anybody that is hearing it out there, it is a horrible industry. It is terrible what it does to women, and it should never be allowed. But I was a Señorita Pepis.
But
Yeah.
that was it. So I'm sorry to go to something that you didn't want to necessarily.
No, no, no. I mean, it's a good story. It's a really good story.
And I think it's clear through this interview that you do not believe in asking for permission necessarily.
No, always for forgiveness.
So where did you learn that?
I think that throughout my life, with the different experiences that I have, humans are risk averse, and I'm a risk taker. I'm very bold. And it's not, I try new things. And I think it's not necessarily by design, it's just something that you experience. And then I realized that when you give people an opportunity to say no, they will say no, right? How can I do this now? Because rarely you have people, if they're confident, they'll say, "Yeah, sure, go ahead and try it." Most people are not confident. So I realized that you need to have the courage to make some bold decisions. But most importantly is that you also have to hold yourself accountable. Nobody made me do it. I made that decision knowingly. You need to do your homework. You know, you learn there in life that you have to do your homework. You have to investigate what's right, what's wrong. Do you have all the information to make the decisions you need to make or whatever? I have a bias for action rather than a bias for contemplation.
Okay. Another practical one for you. You and I, we have like talked, and I've seen you talking about different types of intelligence.
Yes, my
So
favorite.
we talk about EQ, which is emotional,
Mhm.
IQ, which I think is intellectual, and AQ, adversity, and I think you call it also like adaptability,
Yes.
and technical, TQ.
Yeah.
So we could do a monographic having you talk about that, but I want to ask, what about cultural intelligence? Is that a real thing? Is it taken seriously in the business world? Should it be?
Yes. So when it comes to different quotients, you need IQ for knowledge, right? You need EQ for human connections. You need TQ for technology tools, understanding how to do this. AQ is adaptability quotient, is your ability to be able to leverage all those types of intelligence and being able to pivot and adapt and continue to be relevant in change. This is where cultural intelligence comes into play. So cultural intelligence is your ability to understand, to read the room, to understand how things are done, how it's like you start saying, okay, this person did this and that or whatever. It's like you read the room. Even if you don't speak the language, when you see two people interact, it's like, well, that didn't go very well, right? You can see the body language there. So cultural intelligence is just, it's part, in my opinion, it's part of adaptability quotient. It's folded into your ability to morph and to be able to leverage all the other quotients to make yourself relevant. And so you cannot be relevant. If I'm a white woman, I'm 5'6", I'm a white woman. I go to Japan. I'm taller than most of the men in the room, and I'm a woman. If I'm going to stand up and speak, nobody's going to listen to me. So I'm much better off bringing in somebody that's much junior than I. I write down what it is that I want to say. I have him speak on my behalf, and then I'm going to be heard. That's cultural intelligence. It's understanding that this is want to do business. This is, if I want to be effective and I want to be relevant, this is what I need to do. Is it fair? Is it unfair? They don't give a shit. And neither should I, because what I want to do is to have impact. If I want to have impact, I have to have. So I am adapting because I understand all those other things. So I'm going to use technology to be able to do this. My emotional intelligence is going to make me make sure that I have created those connections, and I'm reasonably intelligent because I have knowledge. This is where I feel cultural intelligence is part of that AQ.
I need to say that that example is just brilliant, because with Japan it happens so often that, especially people from the US. So most of my experience is like you American people trying to make an impact in Japan by pushing your own ways onto them, as opposed to like which is legit. Maybe you want to do that. Maybe you want to assert that you are who you are and that you are in control or whatever. But like you said, if you really want to create impact, yeah, it might make more sense to do, what happens in business every single day. I just bring someone who is actually what they're expecting, and it delivers the information and it gets them to commit. And if you're working with like a highly, male driven society, and what you want, if your role there is not to like fix them as a society, but to achieve a business result, then you play along those rules. Might you like hate the fact that you're doing it? That's not part of like the business relationship. That happens afterwards. That happens when you're like having a drink or dinner afterwards. Then you can say that is messed up. That is wrong. I wish it was different. But when you're like focused on business result, that is also like the adaptability, right? It's
You want to be effective.
you want to be effective, you got to do what you got to do. And I think that that's a super powerful advice. You got to do what you got to do. I'm going to ask you, are we in the international business globalization space? Are we particularly well suited for cultural intelligence? Is something that we could capitalize as a business skill?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is something that, it should be a requirement. If you ask me, it's like it's all a matter of, what is the intent and what is the purpose of, whatever motion that you are trying to do. And so, and understanding what are the skills that are required. And it's like, I've seen so many, including at Autodesk, where they had the brilliant idea to put some very successful Canadian hockey player that was really great in sales in North America to be the head of sales in Europe. He lasted 8 months. And when they asked my opinion, the Hubble telescope, how they did, I said, that is the Hubble telescope. And they kind of looked at me and it's like, well, Sophie, that's because you won the job. I'm like, no, I'm very happy in Latin America, but really? And that's exactly what happened. It's like, this dude was very nice. He's also the one who told me that I was smart for a blonde, but he never said that again to any woman after that. But there, no self-awareness. You remember we talked about the self-awareness, but that cultural sensitivity and that, when you are in globalization, is that you have a responsibility to do your homework. You have a responsibility to pause, observe, and understand where you fit into that ecosystem. So like I go to Japan, I'm a woman, I'm a white woman, and I'm 5'6", right? I'm not tall by any standards in the US, but I'm tall. And so I'm confusing to them in a way because culturally they cannot relate to me. It's like it just doesn't work. But I can find somebody that's going to be my megaphone, right? And so then I become and those are the things that the adjustments that we need to do. Is like you're going to have a business lunch with colleagues in Spain or Portugal or in Italy. Don't feed them sandwiches, please. I mean, it's like there's so anyway.
I believe it often gets mistaken though, and people in our space think that just because you speak a language or you are like somehow familiar with the culture, you can actually go and be a cultural expert. And I think that often falls on the pretentious side of things. Having that cultural intelligence that you're describing, and correct me if you see it in a different way. I think that it takes a lot of practice. It takes a deliberate study. It takes having honest conversations with people that you can trust in those cultures that you're trying to get into. So I wonder if we need to like warn people that just, if you're a translator, you might know two cultures fairly well. If you're a business person who has like interacted with many countries, that doesn't make you necessarily a culture expert. And it doesn't give you enough information to be successful in the way that you're describing. So if anyone is trying to like jump into, I'm going to be a consultant for that, just know there is a lot of depth into that. How do you handle yourself from the moment that you step off a plane, through the meetings that you go into, through the memos that you send afterwards, through absolutely to the way that you accept the gift, going back to Japan, right? It's like, how do you handle yourself when you're being a gift? And it can be really powerful. You can position yourself as the person in Japan that asserts, I do not speak Japanese, but I understand you and I see you and I whatever, without having to say it. But just because you speak a language, just because you belong or you have like experience and cultures, that doesn't make you a cultural advisor. That doesn't make you a culture expert. That is something that I had to like learn the hard way, and I had to train for it. I think that's the key thing, is that you need to train for that. It doesn't.
You know what? The Jose, I think that what we need to do is that you need to approach it with a lot of humility. I don't know everything, right? So you need humility, you need time, you need a lot of curiosity, right? And you need to build trust. So you have to go into, especially in business, is that trust is earned, right? And so if you do it by demonstrated that you are curious, that you're taking the time, so you need the time, you need the humility is essential, and something that I struggle a lot with Americans, and my entire professional life has been in the United States. It's like, don't assume that people want to see you. Don't assume that people want your product. Don't assume that you are the greatest of the, and it doesn't matter what you say. You have the proof is in the pudding. So you need to build the trust, and but that level of humility and the time that you need to invest. And so cultural intelligence and cultural sensitivity, it's something that is acquired. It's not something that you go and learn. You just have to see it. You have to observe it. You have to experience it. And so you have to give yourself the space to do it, and to do it intentionally. Well, tell me more about this. How do you say thank you? Why do you eat this thing? What are the ingredients? Who prepares it? Well, you have to really, in business, it's the same thing, So what is the protocol? I mean, try to go into Latin America and say, you picked up at the hotel and you're going to walk into a room and you're going to go and be, no, 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 no. Where do you come from? How was your flight? Have lunch? Maybe I remember bringing my boss. This is such a waste of time. And I'm like, no, watch me get that contract. And he was like, we freaking went to the Minister of Education's house for dinner the next day with the contract was signed. And he was like, what are we doing here? And I'm like, watch me. The patience, I think, is like the humility. It was like, I don't know everything. And say, teach me, show me. That really makes a huge difference.
And you can't rush it. You just can't, right? Okay. So you are writing a book, perhaps two. What are the core messages that you want to share?
So one really has to do about what I have learned throughout my career and what has made me effective, successful, and not. And it really has to do with those 4 concepts that we talked about. It's like, how do you stay relevant when the only constant is change? And your ability to morph, to adapt, to make yourself, current and relevant, which is like you have to be discoverable. People need to know that you exist. You also have to make sure that you are a lifelong learner, because otherwise, the train's going to leave the station and you're going to stay at the train station. And then you have to be relevant in your ecosystem. And that's what we're talking about, the culture sensitivity. And it's like they're, understanding your place in different ecosystem. Make yourself invisible when you need to be invisible, and make yourself known when you have to. And so I want to provide something that is time and industry agnostic. It's like how us as individuals and professionals develop the muscles. It's almost like going to the gym and finding a muscle that you didn't know that you had, that getting a little sore because you need to flex that muscle to make sure that you continue to be relevant. And it's our ability to reinvent ourselves. And so now we all talk about AI. Is my job going to be around? The last couple of years has impacted and disrupt everything that we knew to be true. So, Microsoft licensed 9,000 people here in the Puget Sound. However, they started an academy that is dedicated, is putting billions of dollars in an academy that is meant to teach about the power, the tools that are driven by artificial intelligence, so individuals have an opportunity to reinvent themselves. So if you take like the Industrial Revolution, for instance, when we got rid of the carriages and the horses, right? Anybody that breed horses or that build carriages were out of a job, right? However, we created cars, engines, roads. So all the cobblestone roads had to be paved. And so you have to be able to see the movement and to be able to adapt and to morph and see what it is that I'm good at. And a lot of times has to do with problem solvers, seeing opportunity in times of change, and being able to reframe what it is that you do, what it is that you're good at, and make yourself relevant in this different ecosystem. Fighting the ecosystem and fighting the change is ludicrous. It's a waste of energy. It's going to get your blood pressure. It just doesn't work. And I experienced this after 10 years of being off corporate America. When I went back and got my job at Microsoft in advertisement. That's the beginning of SEOs. What the heck is a search engine optimization? I got a certification in Bing. I started diving. I was learning. Pretty soon, I was teaching, because I felt it was very, very important for me as, woman in her 50s. And then needless to say, I was going through some personal challenges as well. And it was like, I'm going to make this thing happen. And this is where I learned that you can't stay idle. And there's so much power in being able to be the driver, right? And so that's the book I want to drive. And I want to make it small. I want to make it tactical. I was like, these are the things that you can do. This is the things that you need to be aware of. Take those blinders off and make sure to understand what's happening. And the other one, it's all about women's health. And I want to do it from a perspective of what are the barriers to accepting and adopting and doing something about our own health. So it's the shame, I think, that I'm going to use something that is so not politically correct. I think that we are all at some point closeted perimenopausal, menopausal women. I can say this because my son is gay. It's just like in our family, we're very open about all those things. And I think it's like you just have to come to the realization that this is happening to you. And so you can either pretend that it's not and you do it behind closed doors, or you embrace it. Like, I love being old, and it's like I'm not fighting the time. And it's like, if you do it with grace, with humility, if you do it with empowerment, yeah, gravity works. Like things that used to be in a certain place in my body are no longer there. And I'm like, where did you go? Right? It's like, come on. So you can use humor about it. Sometimes you can be like, shoot, what's happening? Okay, my hair's falling, or, oh, whatever. But do it with, what can I say? Just be candid about it, and just, it makes your life better. So those are the two. And I think it's, and I want to make it, I started writing it, believe it or not, before COVID, when remote culture was not a thing. And I'm like, it's still the content, the table of content is still relevant. Why haven't I written it? Okay. Because I got distracted. Squirrel.
So something that you had mentioned earlier, but also you and I we already talked in the past is, and it's not necessarily politically correct, but I want to ask you to explain to me why you say don't be militant, and how you and I
Yeah.
we had the conversation about, like, I don't think that you're like a traditional feminist, for instance,
Mhm.
even though we're talking about women. And I think that one word that you then say, it's empowerment. And I think that empowerment is really suiting for you. But so militancy versus feminism,
Mhm.
how are they different? You told me before that the important thing is having constructive conversations.
Mhm.
So can you explain that?
Yeah, yeah. So, um, the the issue, uh, that I have about militancy is that I don't think it's always effective, right? So, have I benefit from people that have been militant? Absolutely. I mean, it's like there's, because they're driven, they're passionate. There's an element of anger with militancy that can be a real turnoff for people. And so the way I look at it is that if you want to be effective, if you want to drive change, if you want to have allies, if you want to, it's almost like steering the ship in a different direction, be mindful on the how. Right. And so the militancy for me comes in the how. And I think there's a much more effective ways, like, in business. I mean, let me step back a bit. In business, when you come up with a noble idea that is, it's going to shake things up, it's going to change the culture a little bit. If you get buy-in from the decision makers, from the CEO, from the CFO, where you've done a little bit of lobbying and explain the why you're doing it, and understand hearing them and listening to them, and then when you present your novel idea, or when you just like propose something that's going to shake things up, you have had those conversations. You have a little more buy-in. The points of resistance they're tapered a little bit. You may still you get a no, but at least you have a dialogue. You have something that is constructive. What I fear about militancy, it's almost like getting the power by sheer force, or that's how it feels like. And this is how I've experienced. Now, do you need to go out and protest and just like, absolutely, but you can have like a peaceful protest and say, we care deeply about this because A, B, and C. And so the militancy point for me is a turnoff. It's like, I don't need people to start shoving down my throat the stuff that, I just make me aware, and then give me the tools to educate myself. And then take the time to do something about it. And this is, for instance, with menopause and perimenopause, this is what, I mean, I could go and say, well, excuse me, Accenture, and I'm just going to disclose things that are all over our, the public information. We want to get to binary equity by 2025. We want as many men in leadership that we have women, but we have no program whatsoever for women's health. How does that work? So usually women that get into leadership, it's towards the end of their mid-career, 50s to 50s, this is when you start entering with perimenopause and menopause. There's no dialogue about perimenopause and menopause, and yet we want to get there. So what are they supposed to do it on their own? I could get militant about it and say, what the oh? And I'm like, you know what? We have an opportunity here to educate and not necessarily to have the corporation come up with the menopause mandate, which is something that we're working on behind the scenes, but to give the women the tools to educate themselves so they continue to make themselves relevant in that. Am I angry or upset about it? No, I'm disappointed that it hasn't been done before, but I could be militant about it. I want to be effective. And so it's how you deliver the message, how you think through the process. How do you put the building blocks to adoption? Understanding where the decisions are made, who has the power to make the decisions, and making sure that if you bring people into the fold and they said, I'm sorry, but I so don't care about hot flashes and stuff like that. You're like, well, okay, I'm going to find somebody that does.
What you describe though requires a skill, right? So maybe it's not for everyone. Shouldn't we have like both? Isn't it better as a society if we have the people who just, if they cannot do anything better, they do protest and
Yeah.
they make themselves hurt at the very least. And then we need the quiet workers and the strategists. I like to call it the strategists,
Mhm.
right? Who are actually trying to, my favorite word is manipulate. I know that people, it gets a really bad
Yes.
rep, but
I know, but you're
it's
right.
really manipulating. It's you want to like achieve an outcome by doing certain things. Yeah, manipulate things towards the change you want to see. But if you don't feel qualified to do that, it's still fine. I think that it's still better to be loud and
Mhm.
protest
Yeah.
than to be quiet about it.
Absolutely. I mean, you're right. I mean, it's like I'm not saying it's not for me. It's just not for me. I choose to do it differently because I know that I am more effective that way. So I'm not criticizing. All I'm saying is that I mean, militancy has a place and it plays a role. Absolutely. It's not what works for me. I find myself and it makes me uncomfortable because it just like it the the adrenaline or the giving the amount of exercise that I do, I'm probably very much addicted to endorphins and adrenaline. And so if I find myself in a place of militancy, I'm going to like it too much. Oh, I kind of joke with I'm not going there because that's my drug of choice. Right. So no, for me it's like but you're absolutely right. And thanks for bringing this up. It's, it does play a role. It does have a place. It does, it channels people's desire to participate or people's desires to doing something about it. I understand it. It just doesn't work for me. I rather be the strategist behind the scenes that puts all the building. So when the noise is over, there's something in
And
place.
you mentioned before that you might be the one punching someone in the face if you don't really like what they're saying. So I think it makes sense to not have you on the protesting lines necessarily, so we can leave
Oh yeah.
other people.
If I get hit by a rubber bullet, I will destroy that officer.
So yeah, so we'll leave the self control to someone else who can
Yeah.
handle it with
It's good to
with
get self-awareness. It's good to
right,
understand what you're
right,
good at
right.
and what you're
Like
not. Yeah.
that's just on me. That's just on me.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to bring this a little bit to a close, even though I feel like we could be talking for a
Yeah.
much longer time. This is I'm absolutely loving this. But just to bring us to conclusion, I have a couple more questions. So, what is one mistake that you have made that you hope no one else will ever make?
Well, that's a big question. A mistake that I've made. I maybe early in my role as a mom, I did not take enough time to listen to my children. And I was too busy or too preoccupied with wanting them to learn something or be something that I didn't always give them the space to find their own way. And so that is, there's a beautiful belief in Judaism that says that when a child is born, he is science. He is already everything that when it's supposed to be. And the angel of wisdom taps them on the top of the lip. This is why we have an indent and everything disappears. And the role of the parent is chosen. The child is never yours. You were chosen to
Carry that.
allow this human to become what they already are. And I feel that I was not always good at it. Uh, although, they turned out okay and they don't hate me too much. Also, they say, So I think I did a decent job. And I had this rule, you have to do things right 51% of the time, and then you're allowed to mess up the 49%. Otherwise, you drive yourself nuts. But yeah, I think that that's probably what I would do is like if I had a little more perspective, just allow them to choose their own path rather than me being too busy teaching them what the right path was. I mean, who am I to tell them what you know what I mean?
So, self-awareness. Do you think that you have forgiven yourself about that?
Maybe not completely, but some. Yeah, I'm not like, oh, well, I did the best that I could with what I had, which is true, but I could have done a little better. I think it was just a little, there's, immaturity or whatever that was, whatever. I could have done a better job. So no, I have not fully forgiven myself.
Telling me I was having a conversation about like forgiveness and how you need to forgive yourself and you need to forgive others. And I said, not necessarily. I think that there is acceptance. It is super important to be at peace. But in
Hmm.
some cases, no, I'm not sure if it will ever happen. And if it doesn't happen naturally, I don't know if I want to torture myself all my life about not being able to forgive something about myself or about others. I would just accept that it happened and that I
Hmm.
cannot forgive it or that I cannot let it go. And it will just not take any of my energy.
You know what it is? It's interesting you say that. I agree with you 100%. There's two forms of guilt. There's toxic guilt and there's healthy guilt.
Mhm.
That healthy guilt is our barometer. And I think we all need it. It's like I have a little bit of guilt about maybe the way that I guided my children. And I think that's good because that keeps me honest. It's not because I'm mom and I did the best that I could. I don't have that attitude. And I think that healthy guilt. Now, if I beat myself up and say, oh my God, I was such a terrible mother, it's like that doesn't help me either. So it's trying to find the balance between those two things. And I so agree with you. And I always think about sometimes I feel bad. I'm like, oh, okay, is it healthy or is it toxic? Not toxic. Okay, wow, Sophie, stop it. Right? Just do something. But that it's just for me is like I so can relate to what you said. And it's just like thinking about those two things. So yeah, I still have a little bit of healthy guilt, I think. Doesn't keep me up at night, but sometimes I wish I
It's,
had done
it's
it
good.
differently.
It's self-awareness. Self-awareness gives you peace. My last question for you. Once you leave this world, how would you like to be remembered? I got really
That
deep. I got really deep with you. I
no,
gotta
you
admit it.
know what?
You're like
That's
game for it.
perfect.
You
No.
usually have a lot of questions that I skip because it's you play with the vibe as we go, but you can take this one. So
Oh yes, totally. So that food was my love language. That's number one. That I care, that I show up and I care and I mean it and I'm fun. I have a good time. Those three things. If I, you know, take care of the stomach, take care of the soul, and bring a little bit of joy, if that's what I'm reminded of, then I did a good job.
no, nothing else to add to that. Thank you so much, Sophie. This has been absolutely fantastic. I
How fun.
now somehow I feel like we should have done this a long time ago. It's I don't know. It's brilliant. I just so grateful, so grateful that you will also like show up the way that you did.
I dressed up for you, I just I cleaned up a little bit. You know how
Yes, yes. If people saw when we did like the so
the dry run.
there's always like the prep one, and for the prep one, let's say that Sophie wasn't camera ready, like au naturel.
Au naturel. I know, I know. Well, I was ready to go paddleboarding, so just that gives you an idea, which I do every day. I went last night. It was fantastic. Yeah, yeah. I would definitely not dressed for paddleboarding today.
So now I have a little bit of a token of appreciation. Like I said, when I budgeted for this podcast, I definitely didn't realize that I had no money to really come up with a proper gift. So I asked again my eco-friendly LLM to project what would be of Sophie Solomon after the global crowd. And I don't know if you've been exposed to this before, but this is what came out from it. So I think it didn't go too much into the future. It just, I think that this might be your birthday, and
Oh
it
my
just,
God.
I don't know if this is happening for you, but I think that everything except the time cover, everything else has happened, and I'm so glad that you happened to deliver about all of it during this episode. So Sophie Solomon, how the world needs to see her. She's an apologetic, meno-curious. She's a super maman.
Uh-huh.
And the things that she will talk about and be famous for, the future-ready state of mind, she will instruct you about how the problem is not menopause, and she will continue to be teaching leaders to lead. I hope that she has that suitcase with her that helps her
Oh my
deal
God.
with emergencies, but she will be using intelligence for that. And I think that this describes you well. Instead of excuse me if I do, pardon me if I do, I think that that
This
is
is so cool.
I I think that this is how the LLM and myself we see you. So I hope that
I love it. This is so cool. Thank you.
you're
That is so lovely. I just like, yeah, the warrior.
you're a superhero, and actually you're carrying a bunch of colors in there. I can see a little bit of Barcelona and France and the US and even
Mhm.
Portugal, a little bit of Brazil even
Yeah.
in that one. And come on, and it's very accurate. You're strong like that.
Yes, I do have. It's interesting. I was having a conversation with one of my coaches, and I said to them, I'm going to say something that seems really stupid, and that it's kind of like this dot. But when you are in leadership, there's nobody in front of you. You lead. And that concept means that when you think about it, when you are a leader, it's uncharted territory for anybody because first it's you. And nobody stepped on the ground that you're going to step on. And so you need a tremendous amount of courage. You need a lot of confidence when you think about that whole concept, this is what the idea of leadership is like. You are alone. You may have followers, but there's nobody in front of you. And then you start looking
Mhm.
on the side. There's a lot of people like you that are doing that. So, yeah.
And I think that this thing really picked up on the things that you said because that is how it represented you at the top, still looking up. No,
Yeah. Oh,
no one around you. Your
mhm,
superpowers, you carry them with you. But there is like two foundations to it. The one that you talk about,
mhm,
the empathy. The one that you don't talk about as much, but happens in the things that you describe, empowerment. But those two are also looking outward, but also inside.
mhm.
You need to have that self empathy for yourself, understand where you are, how you're feeling, why you're feeling like that. And you need to like self empower yourself because chances are no one will do it for you if you don't do it yourself.
They'll give you reasons not to.
They give you reasons not to.
You may fail. People are going to laugh. What if you're like, you're right. You should have seen the face of my boss when I quit Autodesk. He couldn't believe it. He was just like, you what? He's like, you're crazy. I'm like, maybe. But if I had to do it all over again, I would. But I want that picture.
Guess what? You might be getting it.
I love it. I'm just going to use this as like next time I do a public engagement, I'm going to say, this is what my cousin Jose.
It wasn't me. It was the LLM. It's a prediction. That's how it happens.
Well, but
I have
you
nothing to
you
do with
gave
it.
you gave the LLM a
I
command
just
though.
write the prompt. Yes,
Well, yeah, well,
you are right. You're right.
you're the orchestrator. You're like the puppeteer.
You're right. Sophie, again, thank you so much. It's been brilliant. I only have gratefulness. So thank you. Thank you so much. Let's do it again sometime. This is a great memory. Let's do it again after you've written those books. How about that?
Yeah, and then let's do it again live when nobody's listening.
Yeah.
Then we can really swear. No,
Yes. And I'll have red and you'll have white.
you start with bubbles, and then we move on to white, and then we finish with
There's a
bubbles again.
strategy even for that. There is a plan laid out for even for that. All right. Thank you so much. And I hope we'll do this again. Thank you for being brave and being here and
Love you.
giving us so much.
No, thank you for the opportunity. All right, let's go to work.
Let's go to work.